I want you to close your eyes for a second. Seriously, just for a moment.
Okay.
Imagine you're walking into a serious old school gym. You know the kind I'm talking
Oh,
about.
yeah. I can smell it already.
Right. It smells like chalk and iron and stale sweat. You hear the clanking of heavy plates hitting the rubber floor, the rhythmic hum of the treadmill, people groaning through that last impossible repetition on the bench press.
It's a very specific environment, very visceral.
It is, and here is the thing. We all understand the logic of that room implicitly. You go in, you put the work in, you tear the muscle fibers down, and when you rest, they rebuild.
They get thicker.
Stronger. Exactly. And we also know with absolute certainty that the inverse is true. If you stop going, if you sit on the couch for 6 months eating chips, those muscles atrophy, they wither, they shrink.
Use it or lose it. It's practically a law of physics at this point. We don't even question it.
Right. But here's the question that I couldn't get out of my head while reading through our stack for today, and it's the question that drives this entire conversation. Why do we treat the organ inside our skulls so completely differently?
It is a massive disconnect, isn't it? I mean, we live in this era of biohacking where people are obsessing over their step counts, their protein macros, their resting heart rate variability.
What's so totally? People strapped expensive computers to their wrists to track their sleep cycles?
Exactly. But when it comes to the brain, there's this lingering, almost fatalistic assumption that it's just there, that it's a static machine or like a laptop you bought 10 years ago.
That's a great analogy. It runs the software it runs, and eventually the battery dies, the screen cracks, the processor slows down.
And there's nothing you can do but watch it fade.
Exactly. We treat it like hardware that's destined to obsolescence. We assume the warranty runs out at age 60 and then, you're on your own. But today, we are flipping that script entirely.
I'm glad to hear it.
We are doing a deep dive into a fascinating text titled Neuroplasticity and the Science of Daily Cognitive Resilience. And the central thesis here is going to fundamentally change how you look at your morning routine.
It really is.
The text argues that the human brain is not a laptop. It is not static hardware, it's a muscle.
There it is, the big comparison.
It thrives on friction, it craves resistance, and yes, if you leave it in power-saving mode for too long, it rots.
And I want to be clear right off the top. This isn't just a poetic metaphor to make us feel good about doing a crossword puzzle.
No, this is biology.
This is biology. When we dig into the actual cellular mechanisms, which we will do today, the process for strengthening a bicep and strengthening a neural pathway are, they're shockingly similar.
It's incredible.
It all comes down to stress, recovery, and adaptation.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty specific. We aren't just talking about playing brain games to kill time on a flight or keeping busy.
No, this is much bigger than that.
We are going to unpack the hard science behind keeping the machinery sharp. We're looking at how consistent, targeted mental exertion can actively reduce the risk of structural cognitive decline and even Alzheimer's disease.
And I think it's important to clarify the audience for this too, because I know as soon as we say Alzheimer's prevention, a certain demographic of listener might check out.
Right. That's a problem for later.
Yeah. If you're 30, 40, maybe even 50, you might think, okay, that's a problem for future me. Present me is just trying to get through the work week and pay the mortgage.
Future me always gets stuck with the bill, doesn't he? Poor guy.
He does. But let's not add this to his pile. This deep dive is really designed for what we call the learner persona.
I like that.
It's for the person who wants to optimize what the text calls cognitive resilience right now, today.
So it's not just about staving off decline, it's about being better now.
Absolutely. Whether you're prepping for a high-stakes negotiation, trying to learn Python to pivot your career, or just sick of forgetting where you put your keys every single morning.
Which is me, every single morning.
The biological principles we are discussing are universal.
That's the hook for me. The idea that we have agency. We can physically restructure the hardware we have.
It's empowering.
It really is. But before we get to the solution, the how-to, and the fun stuff, we have to be honest about the problem. We have to look at what happens naturally, biologically, if we just let nature take its course. The text paints a pretty sobering picture of the default mode of aging.
Yeah, it's not the most uplifting chapter in the source material, no. But we have to face it to understand why the intervention works.
Okay, so let's rip the Band-Aid off. If we do nothing, if we just coast, what is actually happening under the hood as we get older?
Well, according to the source material, there are natural, progressive biological changes that affect neuronal communication. You have to think of the brain like a massive, sprawling city with a complex electrical grid.
Okay, I like that.
As we age, if that grid isn't aggressively maintained, the infrastructure just it degrades. Specifically, we see a reduction in the efficiency of the wiring.
When you say wiring, I assume we are talking about the neurons themselves or the connections between them.
Both, but largely the connections. Think about the insulation on a wire. In the brain, that's a substance called myelin. It helps electrical signals move fast and without interference.
So it's like the plastic coating on a copper wire.
Perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, that insulation can wear down. This leads to the first major symptom the text highlights: slower cognitive processing speeds.
I feel like I've experienced this, or at least I've seen it. It's that tip of the tongue phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely.
You know the name of the actor, you can see his face, you know he was in that movie with the boat, but the signal just, it gets stuck in traffic.
Precisely. It's a latency issue. The information is there, but the retrieval process is sluggish.
Right.
In a healthy younger brain, or a well-trained older brain, that retrieval takes milliseconds. It's instantaneous. As we age, if we aren't training, it takes seconds or minutes.
Or it comes to you 3 hours later when you're in the shower.
That's the one. And the text identifies this slowed processing not just as an annoyance, but as a hallmark of structural change. We also see issues with working memory. That's the RAM of your brain.
That's the walking into a room and forgetting why you're there moment.
That's exactly it. You had the intention in the kitchen, I need the scissors, but by the time you walked to the living room, that little packet of data held in your working memory it evaporated.
Because the retention mechanism is weakening?
The signal faded before it could be acted upon.
Now, it's easy to laugh that off as a senior moment. We all joke about it. But the text takes a darker turn here. It suggests these aren't just quirks. They are early warning signs.
They are potential pathways.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. The text frames these minor lapses as the initial cracks in the foundation that can eventually lead to serious conditions like Alzheimer's.
Wow.
If the brain stops being efficient at clearing out metabolic waste, and if the connections stop firing robustly, you enter a state of vulnerability. The atrophy begins.
Okay, that's sufficiently terrifying. I think we're all awake now. But this is where we pivot. Because the whole point of this text is that this decline isn't inevitable. It's not fate.
Not at all.
There is a shortcut, or maybe a maintenance plan, that can arrest this slide.
It's not a magic pill, and it's not a surgery. It's actually much more empowering than that.
It leads us to the absolute core concept of this entire discussion. You cannot talk about brain health today without understanding one specific word: neuroplasticity.
It is the buzzword of the century in neuroscience, but for good reason. It changed everything we thought we knew about the human mind.
So for the listener who has heard the term thrown around on health blogs, but maybe doesn't have a grasp on the mechanics, how does our source material actually define it?
At its simplest level, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life.
Reorganize itself. I love that phrasing. It implies the brain isn't a statue carved in stone, it's more like clay or a dynamic network.
Think of it like a road system in a busy city. This is the analogy the text leans into, and I think it's perfect. For a long, long time, scientists thought the brain was hardwired after childhood. They thought, once you hit 25, the concrete is dry. The roads you have are the roads you have.
And if a road gets a pothole, too bad.
Too bad. If a bridge collapses, game over. It was a very depressing, deterministic worldview.
And also, as it turns out, completely wrong.
Completely. The text makes it clear. The brain is not static. It is constantly changing based on demand.
Demand, so use.
Yes. If a road is getting a lot of traffic, the brain widens it. It turns a dirt path into a highway. If a road isn't being used, the brain stops maintaining it, and eventually, it might even reclaim that space for something else.
That's called synaptic pruning, right? When it gets rid of the unused connections.
That's it. Pruning for the loss and synaptic strengthening for the growth.
Okay, so let's get practical about the traffic part of that analogy. Because traffic in the brain is activity. The text mentions specific activities: Sudoku, word games, journaling.
The classics.
The classics. But I feel like we need to address the skepticism here. My grandmother does Sudoku, and that's great. But is filling in numbers really reorganizing her biological structure? It sounds too simple.
It's a fair question. It's easy to dismiss these things as leisure activities, but the text argues that we need to look at the metabolic cost of these activities.
What's it costing the brain to do them?
Exactly. When you do a Sudoku, and let's assume it's a hard one that actually makes you pause and think,
Not the Monday edition.
not the Monday edition, you aren't just scribbling, you are stimulating multiple brain regions simultaneously. We were talking about the prefrontal cortex for attention, the parietal lobe for spatial reasoning, and the memory centers to track the numbers you've already placed.
So the CEO of the brain, what they call executive function, is clocking in for a shift.
Exactly. You are forcing the brain to plan, to organize, to hypothesis test. If I put a 7 here, what happens to that row in that box? That is complex simulation. It's not passive.
And this brings us to that famous phrase we always hear, neurons that fire together wire together.
What is actually happening biologically when we are struggling through that puzzle?
The text explains it like this. When you engage those areas, logic, memory, attention, the neurons involved send electrochemical signals. They fire.
Okay.
Now here's the key. If they fire repeatedly, the brain detects that activity. It's an efficiency machine. It says, hey, we are sending a lot of signal down this particular pathway. We need to upgrade the hardware to handle the load.
So it physically reinforces the connection. It's not just a metaphor.
Not at all. It's physical. It can thicken the myelin sheath, that insulation we talked about, making the signal travel faster. It can increase the number of neurotransmitter receptors. It can even sprout new synaptic connections between neurons, making the signal more reliable.
So it's literally paving the road.
It is. The dirt track becomes a paved street, and the paved street becomes a superhighway.
And this brings us right back to the muscle comparison. It really is the most accurate analogy we have. If you lift a heavy weight, you create micro tears in the muscle. The body rushes in to repair it, making it stronger for next time.
Right.
In the brain, the weight is cognitive load. The micro tear is that feeling of frustration when you can't figure out the answer. And the repair is the neuroplastic strengthening that follows.
That's a key distinction. The frustration is the workout. If you're breezing through it, you aren't lifting heavy enough.
Precisely. If you're doing the Monday crossword puzzle and you finish it in 3 minutes without thinking, that is not training, that's just recall. That's walking on a flat treadmill.
You need the incline.
You need the incline. And the text emphasizes that older adults who consistently challenge their minds, who keep the incline up, show improved cognitive flexibility.
Cognitive flexibility, let's define that, because that sounds like something you'd see on a corporate resume. But here, it means something biological.
It does. It's the ability to switch between tasks or concepts fluidly. It's the opposite of rigidity.
Which we all know can be a hallmark of aging.
Absolutely. As we age, we tend to get rigid. We like our routines, we like our opinions, we like our specific chair. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to adapt to new rules, new environments, or unexpected changes. And the text links this training directly to a reduced risk of memory impairment over time.
Which is the ultimate goal. But I want to zoom in on a specific piece of real estate in the brain that the text highlights. Because while the brain is the general target, there is one MVP when it comes to memory.
The hippocampus.
The hippocampus.
It's a small, curved structure deep in the temporal lobe. The name comes from the Greek for seahorse because of its shape. And you are right, it is the absolute MVP for forming and storing new memories.
And the text notes that this is often ground zero for Alzheimer's.
It is. In many forms of dementia, the hippocampus is one of the first regions to suffer atrophy. It shrinks.
It physically gets smaller.
Yes. If the brain is a city, the hippocampus is the central processing plant for all new information. If that plant shuts down, you might have all your old memories stored in the library, that is, the cortex. But you cannot make any new records.
That's why patients often remember their childhood vividly, but can't remember what they had for breakfast or who visited them yesterday.
Precisely. The save button is broken.
So protecting the seahorse is priority number one. How do we do it? The text makes a massive distinction here between just staying busy and what it calls the power of novelty.
This is the critical nuance that most people miss.
Right.
We talked about Sudoku. If you have been doing Sudoku for 20 years and you are a master at it, your hippocampus is largely sleeping through the process.
It's bored.
It's bored. Your brain has optimized that task. It's on autopilot. It's efficient.
So efficiency is actually the enemy of growth here.
In the context of neuroplasticity, yes. If it's easy, it's not changing you. The text argues that the hippocampus craves novelty. It wakes up when it encounters something it doesn't understand.
Something it has to build a new map for.
Exactly. Learning to play a musical instrument is a classic example from the text. You have to learn the motor skills of your fingers, the auditory processing of the notes, the rhythm, the music theory.
It's a multimodal assault on the brain. You're doing 10 things at once that you've never done before.
Exactly. or studying new language.
Mm-hmm.
You are mapping new sounds to new meanings. You are navigating new grammar rules that feel completely alien. Or even digital literacy learning, a new complex software or operating system.
So when I'm cursing at my computer trying to figure out a new video editing program, that's actually good for me.
That rage you feel, that's your hippocampus lighting up. It's working hard. It's trying to map a new environment. And the text explains that these novel tasks are what drive a process called neurogenesis.
Neurogenesis, let's break that word down. Literally the birth of new neurons.
Yes, the genesis of new neurons.
Now hold on, I remember high school biology clearly. The dogma was, you are born with a set number of brain cells. You kill a few in college, they are gone forever. The bank account only goes down, you never make a deposit.
That was the scientific dogma for decades. We were told the adult brain could not grow new cells. Period. End of story.
So what changed?
Well, research over the last 20 years, and the source text highlights this, has completely overturned that. We now know that neurogenesis happens throughout adulthood, but, and this is the key, it happens primarily in one place.
The hippocampus.
The hippocampus.
But there's a catch, right? They don't just grow automatically like fingernails.
Right, it requires stimulation. You have to give the brain a reason to invest the energy in growing new cells. It's expensive, metabolically speaking.
So it's a cost-benefit analysis.
Always. If you are sitting on the couch watching reruns of a show you've seen 10 times, the brain says, why would I build new infrastructure? We aren't doing anything. But if you are trying to learn Spanish, the brain says, whoa, we need more capacity here. We need more storage. We need more connections. Build, build, build.
So active stimulation promotes structural integrity. It's like maintaining the building by adding a new wing.
It's constantly renovating. And this helps with more than just memory. The text specifically mentions spatial orientation. This is knowing where you are in the world.
So navigating a supermarket, finding your car in a massive parking lot,
Or finding your way back to the hotel in a strange city.
which again is often a major challenge for people with dementia.
A huge challenge. They get lost in familiar places because their internal map, which is managed by the hippocampus, is degrading. By challenging your brain with new skills, you are reinforcing that map, keeping it detailed and up to date.
That is incredible. It connects the hobby learning guitar to the survival skill finding your way home.
It's all connected.
Now, I want to get concrete. We've talked theory, let's talk numbers. The text throws out a statistic that honestly stopped me in my tracks.
You're looking at the 30% figure.
I am. The text says that memory training activities can reduce the risk of cognitive decline by up to 30%.
It is a staggering number. Let's put that in perspective for a minute. If a pharmaceutical company released a pill tomorrow that reduced your risk of heart attack or cancer by 30% with zero side effects.
It would be the best-selling drug in history. It would be a miracle cure. People would line up around the block for it.
And we wouldn't even blink at the price. But here, we're talking about a non-pharmaceutical intervention,
Just using your brain.
just using the machinery. And the text breaks down what that 30% looks like in daily life. It's not just scoring better on a test. We are talking about tangible improvements in attention span, working memory, problem-solving capacity, and both short-term and long-term recall.
Let's talk about the real-world application here, because cognitive decline sounds abstract, but the text connects it to something very concrete: preservation of independence. That hits home.
That is the emotional core of this issue for so many people. For many families, cognitive decline is the tipping point. It's the moment when living alone becomes unsafe.
It's the moment the car keys have to be taken away.
Exactly. And that is a traumatic transition for everyone involved. It's a loss of identity, a loss of freedom.
Speaking of the car, the text specifically mentions processing speed in the context of driving. This is where the science literally.
Huge savings. As we mentioned, processing speed naturally slows the speed. But why does that matter on the road?
Reaction.
It's all about reaction. You are driving at 40 miles per hour. A kid runs out into the street after a ball. A brain with high processing speed sees the movement, identifies it as a child, accesses the rule brake for children, and sends the signal to the foot to slam the brake.
And that entire loop happens in, what, a fraction of a second?
A fraction of a second. But a brain with degraded processing speed, the signal is slower. It takes a few hundred milliseconds longer, maybe half a second longer.
And at 40 miles per hour, half a second is a lot of distance.
It's a lot of distance. It's the difference between a scare and a tragedy. The text argues that cognitive training keeps that processing speed sharper for longer. It buys you reaction time.
The text also mentions financial management, which sounds boring, but is actually critical for seniors.
It's one of the first things to go, often, because it's complex executive function. Balancing a checkbook, understanding a new tax law, or, and this is a big one, avoiding a sophisticated scam.
Oh, that's a huge problem.
It is.
Yeah.
These scams are designed to overwhelm you. They create urgency. They throw a lot of information at you. And they prey on people whose ability to detect inconsistencies, which is a cognitive load task, has slipped.
You have to hold multiple pieces of information in your head and compare them, and if you can't, you're vulnerable.
Extremely vulnerable. So keeping your brain sharp isn't just about vanity or winning a trivial pursuit.
No, it's about not burning the house down, not crashing the car, and not losing your life savings to a phone scam.
It is about safety and autonomy. It is about keeping control of your own life for as long as possible.
Now, there is another layer to this that I found fascinating. We usually think of the brain as a computer, cold, calculating, logical. But the text connects brain health directly to mental health.
Oh, it's a crucial link. You can't separate the two. They are completely intertwined. The brain produces the mind.
And the text discusses the neurochemistry of achievement. I love that term.
It's great, isn't it?
So what is happening chemically when we solve that tough problem? When you finally find the missing edge piece of the puzzle, or conjugate that verb correctly in Spanish?
You know the feeling. It's that little click of satisfaction. It's a rush.
A little fist pump,
A
maybe?
little internal fist pump. Biologically, that is a release of neurotransmitters, primarily dopamine. But it's not the cheap dopamine you get from scrolling Instagram or eating a candy bar.
It's earned dopamine.
It's earned dopamine, and it feels different. It promotes deep satisfaction, motivation, and mental clarity. It's the brain rewarding itself for a job well done.
It feels good to be right. It feels good to be capable.
It does. And for an older adult, that sense of capability is vital. The text points out a dangerous cycle. Age-related depression is closely linked to cognitive decline.
It's a feedback loop.
A vicious one. If you feel like you're slipping, if you feel confused, you get depressed. You withdraw. You stop trying.
And if you're depressed, your cortisol, the stress hormone, goes up, which hurts the brain.
Exactly. High levels of cortisol are toxic to the hippocampus. It actively inhibits neurogenesis. So depression literally stops your brain from growing new cells.
That is terrifying.
But the text offers the flip side, a virtuous cycle. If you engage in these challenges, you get that chemical reward. You feel sharp, you feel competent.
And mood improves.
Your mood improves, and a healthy emotional state supports nutrient flow to the brain. It reduces inflammation, and it promotes better sleep.
And sleep is when the brain takes out the trash, correct? I've read about this.
That's the glymphatic system. It's like a plumbing system that opens up at night to wash away the metabolic waste things, like amyloid plaques that build up during the day.
Plaques, which are associated with Alzheimer's.
The very same. So better mood usually leads to better sleep, which leads to a cleaner brain. It all works together.
So doing a puzzle isn't just training memory, it is an antidepressant activity. It is stress relief.
Mental hygiene is the term I like to use. It's scrubbing the mind clean.
Okay, moving on to a form of brain training that surprised me. When I picture brain training, I picture a solitary genius in a library, completely silent.
The lone chess master.
Right, but the text argues that social interaction is actually one of the most intense cognitive workouts you can get.
This is one of the most overlooked aspects of brain health, I think. We categorize socializing as leisure, is what we do to relax. But the text reframes it as complex cognitive training.
Because people are unpredictable.
Because people are chaotic. Think about what your brain is doing right now in this conversation. You are listening to my words, decoding the syntax and meaning. You are holding that in working memory.
I'm anticipating my response.
You're monitoring my tone of voice, my body language to gauge my intent. You are remembering previous parts of the conversation to ensure continuity.
And if there was background noise, like in a restaurant, I'd have to filter that out too.
Right. That's another layer of processing. And unlike a crossword puzzle, I might do something unexpected. I might be sarcastic. I might change the subject. Your brain has to adjust in real time.
It has to be flexible.
Incredibly flexible. That is an incredibly high-load activity for the brain.
So chatting with a friend is actually high-intensity interval training for the mind.
In a way, yes. It activates the language centers, the memory centers, the emotional processing centers in the amygdala, the planning centers in the prefrontal cortex all at once.
Wow.
The text specifically lists group activities like book clubs, chess groups, or community workshops as being particularly potent.
Because it's the combination that makes it powerful. You get the cognitive challenge of the book discussion, plus the social processing of the group dynamic.
Exactly. And the outcome is clear from the research.
Right.
Social stimulation is strongly associated with lower rates of cognitive decline. It hits two birds with one stone.
You get the neural activation.
And you get the emotional protection against loneliness.
And loneliness isn't just sad. The text says it's actually toxic to brain structure.
It is a major risk factor for dementia, on par with smoking or a sedentary lifestyle. Isolation deprives the brain of that complex, chaotic input it needs to stay fit. It's like putting the muscle in a cast.
It atrophies.
It atrophies.
Okay, we've covered the what and the why and the biology behind it. Let's land the plane on the how. The text gives us a prescription, and I was relieved to see it doesn't require quitting my job to become a full-time academic.
No, thankfully, it's much more accessible. The healthcare professionals cited in the text recommend a surprisingly manageable dose, at least 30 minutes of brain-stimulating activity daily.
The 30 minutes rule. Is there any science on why that duration? Is it just a nice round number?
It seems to be the sweet spot for neuroplasticity. It provides sufficient duration of neural firing to trigger those strengthening mechanisms we discussed without causing cognitive fatigue or burnout.
It's sustainable.
It's sustainable. And the text emphasizes a very specific rule that I think is the most important takeaway for a lot of people. Consistency over intensity.
This is key. It is far better to do 30 minutes every single day than to do a 5-hour brain marathon once a week.
Absolutely. Just like the gym, you can't work out for 10 hours on Saturday and then sit on the couch for 6 days and expect results.
Your body doesn't work that way, and neither does your brain.
The biology works on repetition. The reinforcement of the synapses happens over time with consistent use. And the text offers reassurance. It doesn't have to be complex calculus. You don't have to hate it.
Thank goodness, because if it was calculus, I'd be out.
Me too. Simple, enjoyable tasks work. Card Games Bridge is excellent because it involves memory, strategy, and social interaction.
That's a triple threat.
It is. Reading educational material, and that means not just scrolling headlines, but reading a book that challenges your worldview or teaches you something new.
Writing letters was one that stood out to me. It feels like such a lost art.
It is, but think about the cognitive demand. You have to physically write, which engages fine motor skills. You have to compose sentences, which uses your language centers. You have to access long-term memory to recall details about the person you are writing to.
You're thinking about your audience, your tone.
It's a fantastic full brain workout.
And creative hobbies. Painting, knitting, woodworking.
Anything that requires planning, spatial visualization, and fine motor control. The text points out that if you're knitting a complex pattern and you drop a stitch, figuring out how to fix it, that problem-solving moment is pure gold for the brain.
That's the heavy lifting.
That's the heavy lifting.
But, and this is the final piece of the puzzle, cognitive training doesn't work in a vacuum. The text wraps up with a section on holistic lifestyle support.
Right. You can't do Sudoku for 30 minutes and then eat garbage, never sleep, and expect to be a genius.
It all has to work together.
Correct. The brain is an organ of the body. It relies on the body's support systems. The text highlights 3 pillars: sleep, nutrition, and physical exercise.
We touched on sleep with the glymphatic system, the brain's cleaning crew.
Yes, sleep is non-negotiable. It's also when memory consolidation happens. It's when you move files from the desktop of your mind, the short-term memory, to the hard drive, the long-term memory.
So if you don't sleep, you lose the data.
It's that simple. It never gets saved.
And nutrition?
The brain is an energy hog. It weighs about 2% of your body weight, but consumes 20% of your energy.
Wow, 20%.
It needs high-quality fuel. That means good glucose regulation, omega-3 fatty acids for the cell membranes, antioxidants to fight inflammation. If you feed it junk, the machinery clogs up.
And finally, physical exercise. This one always surprises people. Why does going for a run help my math skills?
Blood flow. At the simplest level, it's just hydraulics. Exercise increases your heart rate, which pumps more blood to the brain. That blood carries oxygen and nutrients.
Fuel delivery.
Fuel delivery. But more importantly, aerobic exercise releases a protein called BDNF,
Which stands for?
brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
That sounds important.
It's often called miracle grow for the brain.
I like it.
It literally encourages the growth of new neurons and synapses. So, going for a brisk walk is fertilizing your brain, preparing the soil for the cognitive training you're going to do later.
So the comprehensive formula is cognitive activity plus these lifestyle factors equals reduced Alzheimer's risk and lifelong vitality.
It is a package deal. You have to treat the system as a whole. You can't optimize just one part and ignore the rest.
This has been quite the journey. I mean, we've gone from the gym analogy to the synaptic cleft to the seahorse in the temporal lobe to the chemistry of satisfaction. Let's try to distill this for the listener. What are the big takeaways?
Well, the headline is clearly that 30% reduction stat. That is the potential reward for consistent effort. It's a huge motivating number.
It really is.
But the mechanism is neuroplasticity, the fundamental understanding that you have agency over your brain's structure. You are not a passive observer of your aging process. You are the architect.
And we shouldn't forget the hippocampus. It loves novelty. If you've been thinking about learning guitar or Spanish, consider this your medical prescription to start.
Do it. Your brain will thank you. And remember the emotional and social components? Brain health is mental health. Staying connected keeps you sharp. Don't isolate yourself.
So here is a final provocative thought to leave you with, drawing from the source's humor. The text says the brain should not go on vacation mode.
Which is funny because we all love a vacation, but biologically, for the brain, a permanent vacation is a decline. It needs a job. It needs a purpose. It needs a problem to solve.
Exactly. So ask yourself today, if puzzles are the gym and thoughts are dumbbells, what is your workout looking like? Have you lifted anything heavy mentally today?
Or are you just coasting on the treadmill of habit?
That's the question.
Yep.
And I'll leave you with the source's final witty connection. Keep that mind sharp, because a sharp mind helps you remember where you left your glasses.
And Lord knows we all need help with that.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Go train that brain.
Until next time.